Welcome to Snippets of Wisdom with your host, Mike Carell and Dr. Michael J. Murphy. Snippets of Wisdom is the boomer's gift to the next generation and to the world at large. Dr. Michael J. Murphy and Coach Mike Carell are experienced psychotherapists, writers, and healers who find the greatest satisfaction in sharing the benefits of a lifetime of struggle and learning. Coach Mike has spent decades spreading deep wisdom and supporting youth through the juvenile justice system. Dr. Michael has directed mental health services at many correctional centers and testified in countless trials as an expert in sex-related issues and mental illness. And he was one of the 500,000 humans at Woodstock. So now, please welcome the hosts of Snippets of Wisdom.
Hello, I'd like to welcome you to our show today of Snippets of Wisdom. This is Dr. Michael Murphy, forensic psychologist and psychotherapist. And I want to have the great honor today to introduce my colleague and friend, Mike Carell, who is now Dr. Mike Carell. Since we last met, my colleague has completed his doctoral degree, so now he is appropriately addressed as Dr. Carell. Still has the same vast amount of experience and training that he had even before getting that very auspicious degree. But it is really an example of the subject that we're going to be talking about today, which is the opportunity to use the law of actualization, hope, and belief to create a reality that we think will be most beneficial for ourselves, our families, our communities, and our world. So we're going to be digging deep into this subject today and bringing some ideas forward that I think will be of great service to everyone in our audience and everyone around the world, because these are crucial concerns that we're facing now. And it's a really unique moment in our history, I think, as a species, for us to have the chance to do something very special. So thank you for showing up. And Mike, would you like to say a thing or two just to introduce yourself?
Well, yeah, it feels really good to be back. I missed a few weeks and I really missed being able to share with everyone. Um, Fortunately, it was for a good cause because I did have to focus on defending my dissertation before the Institutional Review Board, which meant that I had to dot my I's and cross my T's and, make sure that it was perfect in their eyes. So, I'm really grateful to be back because the whole purpose behind all of that long journey is so that I could share with more authority, more conviction, and more confidence the things that really, really matter to folks like you and me, Dr. Murphy. So I'm glad to
These
be
are
back.
crucial ideas. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that and congratulations once again. It's just, it's an example of uh, the value of the long journey that we have in this life. Those of us in the boomer generation now, and there's still, I think I read somewhere, something like 70 million of us left here in the
Wow.
United States. We still comprise something like 20% to 30% of the population, the boomer
Beautiful.
generation, of which we are a member. And I think, we really have an opportunity now to have another of what I call a Woodstock moment.
Beautiful.
I've spoken earlier that years past, I just happened to have the opportunity to be dropped off at this place that turned out to be the Woodstock Music Festival. I had no
Yeah.
idea that was happening. I think in 1964 or something like that, 69, I don't know,
Yeah.
somewhere around there. And I just happened to be there by myself, wandering around among 500,000 people in this
Wow.
muddy, rainy place with a lot of people making a lot of great music. And that was one of those circumstantial things that just happened. I mean, I know
Serendipitous.
talking to them then, they didn't expect that to happen, but it
Right.
did happen. And so we face a similar moment right now, I think. And I wanted to begin. by just saying that, talking about a period that sort of, once again, was a precursor of the moment that we face right now that we're going to be talking about in this presentation. And
Yeah.
that is this opportunity to make a reality right now, this sort of boomer moment when there are lots of technological things that are happening right now that could really change the reality of our planet
Yeah.
and our communities and our families and ourselves. So I remember, and I'm just going to go off on this little riff for a moment, way back in 1964, when my mother brought me to the New York World's Fair. 1964, they had all this stuff in New York City. I went there and I remember walking around the grounds with the other thousands and thousands of people, gazing at all of the things that were presented there. It looked like flying cars, the beautiful skyscrapers, uh, a world without work, a world of peace and happiness and wisdom, where people were smart, kind, and thin. And they wore these kind of flexible garments made of some kind of weird stuff. In other words, they presented a version of the future at the New York World's Fair in 1964 that looked really cool. And
Yeah.
I remember thinking, as like a 8 or 9 year old boy, I couldn't wait to be in that future. And right now, I think it's very important to point out that we have a chance to create that future now. In
Yes.
other words, 1964, the future that we imagined way back then, may finally be arriving. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is the factors that contribute to um, that reality. So I think you stand as a testament to that. I think, Mike, when you have shown your perseverance and persistence in reaching um, the great accomplishment that you have accomplished now in getting your doctoral degree, so you can contribute even more to the lives of your clients.
Yeah, it's what it reminds me of is getting higher up on a mountain to where your perspective changes. We're always climbing uh, in this lifelong journey. We're always climbing, and the climb itself doesn't feel easy. But the inspiration and the reason why we're climbing is what drives us to continue. You know, um, Once we get to that place that we want to get, it's going to change our perspective. It's going to allow us to see more that we couldn't see and continue the direction that we're going because now we have more to consider. We now know what our new options are. Um, Part of the plan changes. In other words, we know more about what we need to accomplish and how we need to accomplish it because we have a better view of what's out there and what's to be done. So yeah, it's a very exciting time when you think about all of that futuristic vision that was presented to us being in our hands now. It's amazing. It's amazing.
That's a great observation. It is in our hands and others, but obviously it's in everyone's hands
Yeah, yeah,
to do that. And one of the things that you mentioned when we talked about this even before coming on the air here is that how important it is when you want to make those very positive realities occur is sharing the vision with others who care about you. So actually having the vision yourself, like you wanting to accomplish this goal, the New York World's Fair is really just a big vision sharing exercise where they create these beautiful concepts of what the future might be. And then you need to share those concepts with other people so people start to buy in, people start to believe. I mean, you need, so everyone out there who has a dream, if you want to be a physician, you want to be a psychologist, you want to start a business, you want to become an athlete, I mean, you want to have a family, all these things that you may want to do, the first step is to create that vision and then to share that vision with your loved ones, to let other people know what your vision is. And so
Yes.
really explaining it to them, this is who I want to be,
Yeah.
because that expresses your belief in the possibility of that vision, your
Yeah.
capacity to create that reality. And it also gets them on board with sort of being supportive in any way that they might be able to help you down
Yeah.
that long road. I think of something like becoming a brain surgeon. You want to become a brain surgeon? Well, that's a long, long, long road. Not only do you have to go to college, you got to go to 4 years of medical school, you got to 4 years of specialty
Surgical.
specialty training, then you got to be supervised. It's literally 15 or 18 years of
So
concerted effort, similar to what you just accomplished in just persevering throughout year after year. So you probably really had to let others know that you wanted to reach that goal, and then to continue that. And what helped you to persevere in that long journey?
it's interesting because one of the ways to garner support, I mean, we don't see ourselves as having to garner support because people that love us just naturally say, well, I support you no matter what it is. But, the support really becomes uh, more effective when there is some kind of buy in for them. When you share your vision, it's kind of like, well, once I get this done, guess what's going to happen to you? You're going to benefit in this way, and you're going to benefit in this way. So as soon as I can get this done, you have a lot to look forward to. When you get that buy-in, the support becomes even more crucial and even more robust. And it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, when Dorothy found herself on this journey, and on that journey she met these people that needed something. And her vision, when she shared her vision with them, there was some buy-in for them. The scarecrow and the lion and all of those folks had a reason to go with her and to support her. And that's what we got to do in our life.
Yeah.
Share our vision in a way that's going to create a benefit for those we love and those we care about. So
That's a great observation, and I think that that's another way of saying that when one person succeeds, all the people benefit. And
that's
really,
right.
that's something that all of us, I think, need to keep in mind more, that being supportive of others
Yeah.
also helps us. And we'll be getting deep into that later in this presentation. We talk about some examples of that, some more examples other than your great example, Mike. But that's really true. I mean, just being able to let other people know that when they're supportive of you, they actually are going to benefit as well. I mean, once
Yep.
you are thriving, then they are actually going to thrive as well. And so that's a dynamic, a positive dynamic. And we're going to talk after the break about the effects of the negative dynamic. When you believe that things are difficult and stressful, and maybe talking about some examples of that. I'll be happy to share that. I come from an immigrant family, and we'll talk about the effects of that immigrant mentality and
Yeah.
the struggle that so many of our families had in the past, boomer families,
Hmm.
um, and how learning to persevere through the struggle is so important, and what measures we can take to help ourselves and others make it through that period. So when we
Yeah.
come back after the break, we're looking forward to getting deep into those practices that we can actualize for ourselves and others.
Perfect.
Mike Zorich, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorick, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorick has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back to Snippets of Wisdom with Dr. Mike Corral and Dr. Michael Murphy, where we share some of the essential insights that really have great significance to our generation, to our families, our communities, and our worlds. And right now, I'm going to start out by talking about this opportunity that our planet faces right now in this time. And it's called the Dyson sphere. So a lot of you may understand a lot more about this technical stuff than I do, but I will share what this is with people just so we're all kind of on the same page. The Dyson sphere is a term for a mechanism of harvesting and harnessing the energy of the sun. What it really means is sending rockets up around the sun that will also have with them solar panels. Now, way out in space, when you're right around the sun, you have the opportunity to just sort of have the panel there all the time. So there's no clouds, there's nothing to interfere with the radiance of the sun onto that solar panel, so it gathers energy in a much more efficient way. So the bottom line of all this is that we are coming upon a time when the human race will have access to a virtually endless amount of energy to power all of the new technologies that we will be coming upon. Like we've heard that the new computers, AI, all that stuff consume tremendous amounts of energy. Well, that amount of energy can certainly be harvested in this form by the sun. Sir Elon certainly talks about this, and we all know about Elon. He's sort of the Da Vinci of our generation, who's making lots of things possible, really presenting the dream, a much more positive dream of the kind that we've been talking about. So the key is that we understand that there is a possibility now for us as a human species to have access to all of the energy that we need in order to create a very well supplied and healthy environment on the planet Earth, where people can really have the opportunity to do the kind of work that they want to do rather than the work that they in the past had to do in order to survive. So there's a lot of positive things that are going to happen as a result of this technological process that we face. We also have to be somewhat careful about it because the possibility exists that if you put up too many solar panels around the sun, then that interferes with the sun's energy to generate that same energy on the earth. So then we have problems with the lack of energy on the earth. So it requires some thought and planning and care, but it certainly is something that can be done, and it's a positive outcome that really faces faces us now with a potential near future that could really be positive, in which we'd have a virtually boundless source of energy for all of the efforts that we want to accomplish. And I think that it's really that is going to happen. And if we don't screw things up, then that reality is going to arrive. And so the things that we need to do is to be able to believe in that and to support it and to nurture it through to its completion. And I think that's an example of sort of some of the things that you were talking about, Mike, in terms of just having that dream and being able to support that dream and sharing that dream so
Yeah,
that everybody has a buy-in with it. All of us believe that
absolutely.
it's possible. And that's going to make all the difference.
I think so too. One of the things that makes it interesting for people in our position to share in that buy-in is to educate ourselves on what does that really mean? What will it encompass? What can I do to help this mission? Um, Not only technologically, not only in the way of understanding what the technology is going to do, but as a responsible steward in the process. Because our hope relies on our ability to push this through and to make it happen. Without hope, well, there's no effort. If there's no hope, you're not even going to put in the effort. But at the same time, we want to be able to have a positive influence on each other because uh, we can't do it alone. Nobody can do it alone. They say a threefold cord is not easily broken. The more people you have involved in this, the more energy you have towards making it happen. And to be able to keep that hope alive, we need to share the vision, with clarity, with distinction, and with the opportunity for everyone who's going to be involved. So
Right.
I think for me, the first thing to do would be to educate myself more on what this means. What is it going to be technologically? What's going to happen? You know, I read somewhere that Dyson spheres can happen on other stars. Like the sun is the big star, but it can also happen on other stars that probably wouldn't interfere or wouldn't hinder the effort if we'd all try to crowd it around the sun to block it from the earth, so to speak.
Exactly. So that's you can do it. It's called, I think, and I'm probably going to screw this up, but it's a Korsakoff one when we harvest all of the energy that is available on the planet Earth. It's
Hmm.
Korsakoff two when you harvest all of the available energy from your neighboring star, which in our case is the sun.
Uh
And
huh.
it's Korsakoff three or four, maybe. Yeah, I think it's four when you harvest all of the available energy from your galaxy. So this
Yeah.
is a long journey. It's a long, complicated
It's
journey
infinite.
that, but it is a long and complicated and potentially very positive journey in
Yeah.
which we have a lot of excitement and we have the opportunity to do and accomplish just about everything that we want to accomplish, to care for everyone, so everyone can sort of have what they need in order to survive and thrive if we nurture this, sort of like you nurture a child. I mean, if you have a child, it's a million choices that you make over the course of that child's life to nurture them and foster them and support them through lots of experiences that help them to grow and become the human being that they potentially have the opportunity to become. This is not that different. We need to all get together to nurture and foster this long-term goal of caring for our planet, caring for our solar system, caring for our galaxy. All that stuff is kind of the same, and it's not beyond imagining now at all. It certainly is something that is possible that that we can do, and I believe that we will do. But one of the things you talked about, Mike, earlier is the process of dehypnosis. And that's
Hmm.
sort of learning how not to fall victim to negative interpretations and sort of
Yes.
learning how to undo the negative beliefs so that you can create space for the positive belief in the
Yeah,
future.
absolutely. When you when we approach a mission like this, it requires that we be conscientious about what we're doing as responsible stewards. When we discovered that we were running out of resources, we became more conscientious because we wanted we began to do recycling and making sure that we were restoring what we put back. But there's another level of conscientiousness which is even more positive, which involves enthusiastic conscientiousness. It's kind of like when you think about the Woodstock together. Let's just say you were part of the committee that was going to plan Woodstock, and you had to be conscientious about making sure that the venue was good. The people were going to be taken care of. The merchants were going to be taken care of. The bands were going to be, that excitement that you have and that conscientiousness, you put all of your effort into making a project happen. You let aside all of the guilt and all of the remorse for what you did wrong. Like, with the whole recycling thing, I used to feel bad if I didn't put a plastic container in the right place, because or using straws or using whatever it is. But if you can stop focusing on the negative part enough to get excited about the positive part, we can have that conscientiousness. When you talk about dehipnosis, we have to kind of undo our programming long enough to believe that the hope is righteous and fulfilling and generous enough. I shared the example with you about a guy who came to me to help him stop smoking. And I asked him if he had ever been hypnotized before, and he said, well, no, not that I know of. I said, well, I'm here to tell you that you have. As a matter of fact, you do believe in hypnosis. You do, you said you didn't think it could help you, but let me give you an example. And I said, how long have you been smoking? And he said, oh, at least 25 years. Okay. I said, why do you smoke? He says, well, it relaxes me. Okay. I said, okay. Okay. So now what you're doing when you're smoking, ingesting a stimulant. Did you know that you're ingesting a stimulant that triggers your adrenaline? And but you feel yourself not being stimulated. You feel like you're actually relaxing because it's a habit that you created that was a way to relax. Your mind says you're relaxing and you feel relaxed in your mind, but your body is being stimulated. So that's hypnosis. That's self hypnosis. So if you really want to have a new program, if you want to invite a new program into your life, it's all you. You're the one who has to do it. No hypnosis can help you. You're the only one who can hypnotize yourself. I can't hypnotize you. So with that being said, I've already given him the program that he needs to follow on his own. When you motivate somebody, you're better off with them moving themselves than trying to push them to where they need to go because they usually don't.
Exactly. So the first thing that you need to do is to support other people. But that's sort of the reaching out and sharing your story, sharing your dream, is
Yeah,
to sort of help others to dehypnotize themselves so they can make that step to stop, to end the belief in negative outcomes. Just a quick story. My grandmother, who escaped from the old country by the skin of her teeth, used to say, "Oh, don't dream anything. Don't have a positive imagination because maybe you'll jinx it." So, she
right.
really did. Her deep philosophy was expect the worst and you'll never be disappointed. So
Yes,
that's a
it's
piece of hypnosis you need to undo. You have to
absolutely.
change that, and that was deeply ingrained. It's very hard to undo, but once you give yourself your own mind and your own heart that opportunity to deprogram and to believe in the positive outcome
That's
and
right.
have faith in that, that really increases the probability at the margins that it is going to occur. And
For
we need to
sure.
take another break, and
Yep.
we'll look forward to coming back with more useful information.
master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
So welcome back to Snippets of Wisdom with Dr. Mike Corral and Dr. Michael Murphy. In this segment, we're going to directly address the issue of hope. Now, this hope is a very complex word. I mean, it's really an interesting word to think about. What does hope really mean? Well, I think hope has a lot to do with the subjects that we've been talking about in terms of that positive expectation. Hope is a belief in yourself, a belief that things will turn out okay in the end. And this is really stuff that I think is very interesting socially in terms of our culture. A lot of the media that I see tends to have a negative focus, right? So it creates an expectation that we're in trouble, there's a crisis. Like they say in media, I've written for newspapers for a long time. If it bleeds, it leads is sort of the main subject. You want to have stories on the front page about negative outcomes because that draws attention. When we look at the movies that are made today, they usually have a plot that includes something terrible happening. Some disaster is happening, some person is being harmed or threatened in some way, and then you have the hero come along and sort of fix up the situation. But it always is based on this plot that uh, negative and frightening things are happening. So one of the things we're trying to do now en masse as a human species is to change that pattern of fundamental expectation, fundamental negative expectation, as you were pointing out, Mike, and dehypnotizing the human race with regard to being acculturated, if you will, to this pattern of thinking that something terrible is going to happen unless we do something to stop it. When in reality, that is not the case right now. We have the opportunity to really move in a positive direction. I wanted to talk about the power of hope with regard to a person who had a wonderful story, and that is Dr. Viktor Frankl.
Yeah.
He was a psychiatrist who was born in Italy prior to the time of World War II. So he was of Jewish extraction. And when World War II began, they began scooping up people who were Jewish in Italy. He had recently been married. He and his wife and his parents and a brother of his were taken away and they were put in a concentration camp. So this is just about the most desperately negative situation that you can possibly
Right.
imagine. You're going through your life, you get married, you have positive expectations, and suddenly this devastating eventuality occurs. And he even more horrifying, his wife and his parents and his brother actually died as a result of uh, the level of extermination that was occurring in those concentration camps.
Yeah.
However, Dr. Frankl himself survived for over 3 years as he was moved from concentration camp to concentration camp to concentration camp. And
Long
the
time.
question is, how did he do that? How was he able to survive this horrendous situation that was fatal for so many people? And
Hmm.
yet he himself was able to persevere and live. Uh, and
Good
the fact of the
question.
matter was that he was able to then write a wonderful book after the war called Man's Search for Meaning, in which he described the psychological and physical process of his survival in repeated exposures and confinement in concentration camps during World War II. And he said that he did this himself by really nurturing and very scrupulously preserving his sense of hopefulness. So the feeling of hope was what kept him moving forward. And he preserved that hope by being of service to others. So when he's in this concentration camp, confined in these terrible pens, having to go out in the freezing cold and work literally like a slave every day, and many people dying, he himself shared everything that he had. If he had an extra crust of bread, he would share it with his fellow inmate. If he had an extra piece of blanket, he would share it with them. He really served the people with whom he was confined. And he found that to be really restorative for him. I mean, he understood that he needed to be of service if he was going to persevere in a context of adversity. And that insight that if you preserve hope and you engage in service during a period of adversity is really the secret sauce that helps us to survive hard times. So, I think that model and his ability then to survive and produce his great book, Man's Search for Meaning, is a
Hmm.
wonderful example of this need to interpret even the most terrible situation in a way
Yeah.
that allows you to survive and to persevere and even to thrive in as terrible context as that. And then the day came when the American troops were advancing in Germany. And in fact, one day they woke up to find that all of the German soldiers had left and the doors were wide open. And the troops arrived and they were, quote unquote, liberated. So it's a wonderful example of how sometimes, even in the most terrible of situations, perseverance really pays. And
Yeah.
so I think it's a great classic story. I urge you to read it, everyone to read the book, Man's
Oh,
Search for
definitely.
Meaning. And it's really something that we can apply today. When we understand we face adversity in the world, there's good things and not so good things going on in the world. But if we create a feeling of hope and a feeling of support and service for others, that actually will contribute to a very significant degree to the actualization of that reality, that more positive reality that we face the opportunity for right now. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts about that, Mike? Do you have, I'm sure that you have experiences that are similar in that regard.
Yeah, that's a classic story, and it's a classic example of what it means to keep your hope alive. Every day you'll hear somebody say, "Well, I don't want to get my hopes up," and they're afraid to dream big. They're afraid to imagine the possibilities in a good way because the excitement that comes into your body and all of that kind of stuff that really makes you want to move forward. They're afraid they're going to lose that. Well, you guess what? You're never going to have it if you don't hope. You know,
Right.
what's the fear? The fear of getting your hopes up and having them disillusioned. Well, that's a fleeting thought. Allow your hopes to get bolstered. Get your hopes up because that very hope is what's going to clarify your vision. It's going to allow you to see more of what's possible, especially when you begin to share your vision and share that little bit of hope that you have, like Viktor Frankl did. He could have looked around and said, I only have one crust of bread left, and it's just enough for me. But he didn't. He split that up and gave it to someone and created more hope. And guess what happens exponentially? People that mimic what you do, they model your behavior, and the hope becomes exponentially greater. Not just because of you, but initiating with from you and moving beyond you. So we have more power than we realize to make things happen.
That's a great insight. And I think you talk about the willingness to risk hope. When it
Yeah.
situation like that, you have to be willing to take that risk of
Yes.
believing in hope and being hopeful, even in a situation. It's easy to feel more positive when things are going great and everything's wonderful and sort of you
Yeah.
think things are easy and you want things to be that way, sometimes at least. But what really matters all the time is to risk hope and just
Yeah.
put that over your mirror or something, risk hope, that you actually choose to take the risk to be hopeful with
It
regard
makes all
to
the
the
difference
expectation of the positive outcome.
in
And
the
he
world.
did
Yep.
that. He chose to believe I have one crust of bread, I can give it to my colleague here, and maybe
Yeah.
he'll survive. And that helped him to feel like, hey, that's a belief that things are going to be okay. And like when we think about our parents, what did parents do? Well, they basically, in the best sense, that hopefully they gave you the feeling that things are going to be all right. I mean, the home's going to be around, you're going to have food, clothing, and shelter for the next day. And
Yep.
so there was a sense of safety. That's what you want others to give you when they are caring toward you, is the sense of reassurance that things are going to be all right. And so believing in that now, that we have this moment when technology is making these tremendous advances, and if we foster them consciously and intelligently, then we are going to have the opportunity to create a reality that could
Yes.
be very, very, very special, in which we
Absolutely.
extend, as Elon says, we extend our intelligence into the universe in ways that can be truly magical. And we create a reality that can foster and nurture wonders that we can't even imagine at this point. So I
Yeah.
think that having that belief is crucial.
It is crucial. We don't realize that we create a reflection that comes back to us. And if we wanted to multiply the light, all we need to do is reflect it. Get a mirror and we can double the light. And if we're good at reflecting each other's motivation, reflecting each other's love and inspiration, we can grow it in many ways. I'm thinking about parenting. You mentioned parenting. uh, I remember a time when I, for some reason, was worried about my mom, and I told her, I can't sleep tonight because I don't want you to die. I'm worried about that you're going to die. I said, well, I'm not going to die, honey. Just, I'm going to be fine. Just lay down here on the foot of the bed and go to sleep, and everything's going to be okay. The thing is, as I grew up, I remember times when my mom being depressed and me giving her that same comfort that she gave
Right,
me, the same
right,
words I gave back to her. We never know that what we do for others is going to come back to us.
right,
The
right,
fact, as a child, I got my hope from having something bigger than myself. My parents were bigger than me, and they were more resourceful than I was, and they had more to offer. The older we become as baby boomers, we begin to lose sight of those things, and some now it feels like we're the parents, and there's nobody older than us to give us that support. But
right.
guess what?
What you're talking about is the power of hope. The
That's right.
tremendous power that it has when
Absolutely.
you make the choice to represent that hopeful perspective, and it's a risk, the risk of hope, the power of hope. And when we come back, we'll have the opportunity to sort of wrap this up with some summary statements that really, I think, will be very helpful to all of you out there.
Absolutely.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life.
Welcome back to Snippets of Wisdom with Dr. Mike Corral and Dr. Michael Murphy, as we talk about the power of hope and the need to risk hope and to believe in hope. And we're going to talk about the significance and power and the actual tools that you can use to foster that positive reality as we go forward right now. And one of the means we want to do that is to ask you to like and subscribe kind of positive and hopeful presentations that can have a real positive effect on the future of your family, your communities, and yourself. So please take the time to like and subscribe and recommend this with your friends and share it with them. One of the things we really wanted to talk about now too is the power of belief and faith with regard to uh, hopefulness and the belief in a positive future and its effect on ourselves physically. So I think the physiological effects of hope is something that we haven't yet addressed, but I think it's very significant. I mean, we understand that we human beings are physiologically designed to cope with adversity as well as uh, achievement and more positive times, good times, bad times. Physiologically, our body reacts very differently to those two situations. When we're highly stressed, our blood pressure rises, our blood flow becomes constricted to the central circulatory system, and we show the effects of what we call stress. So stress is fine. We need to be able to tolerate stress and understand that stress is a positive signal to make us more alert. We think we're in a situation where there's danger, so we become uh, involved in a neuroanatomical pattern of reaction to what we see as danger with the stress response, which is something that causes us to be more vigilant, more aware, and maybe that awareness helps us to survive a situation that is more risky for us. So there's nothing inherently bad or evil about stress. It's just how we cope with it and whether we don't allow ourselves to be stressed excessively in situations where, in fact, we're not in danger.
We
So
can
I think
actually
it's
use it to
very,
our advantage.
go ahead.
No, I was going to say we can actually use stress to our advantage. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
uh, when you think about the resistance that stress causes us, It's not unlike what athletes do in training. They create resistance so that they can build their power.
Right.
Sprinters are a good example because what they do is they attach these parachutes to themselves called
Right.
running parachutes, and they run and they have the parachutes open so that it creates this resistance that they have to overcome. When it's time for a big race, they release the parachutes and they're able to go at full force. So rather than create our own running parachutes, we can utilize what is already there. Our our situation that would ordinarily cause us stress can simply be considered resistance that we can overcome. That's going to build our strength, build our skill set, build our character. And we don't have to create them; they're there already. We'll just use them to our advantage. All of those stressors
Yeah.
are already.
Exactly. When we think about that, it's called resistance training.
That's
So
right.
you're training yourself to deal with resistance. And what does that do? Well, it makes you stronger. There's this famous saying by Nietzsche, the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who said,
Yeah,
"That which does not kill me makes me stronger." Well, you don't want to necessarily go to those kind of extremes very often, but
right.
in terms of becoming stronger, we do need to learn how to cope with resistance in a
Mhm.
positive way and understand that if we put ourselves in situations where we're getting to the edges of our capacities,
Yeah.
we actually are becoming stronger by virtue of that risk, risking hope, risking belief in ourselves, choosing to
And we,
believe that we can accomplish this challenge in going through this transition for humanity with all these technological changes
right.
that could be really wonderful for all of us. That's a challenge. And when we face the resistance of that challenge, we actually can become stronger. So seeing it in a positive way really allows our whole biological system to be more relaxed and confident with regard to the positive outcome of
Sure.
the challenge. So that's the key, is to choose to believe in the positive outcome, engage the resistance in a positive way.
The Bible says, "Hope maketh not ashamed." In other words, that's a promise. If you hope, don't worry, you won't be disappointed. And so, I mean, if you believe in the Bible, you have an advantage. I mean, you
Right.
have an advantage because there's something there greater than yourself that you can believe in. I know for one, my default, when everything falls apart, my hope is that I will not be disappointed. I believe in God. I believe in God's promises, and I rely on them heavily. It's an advantage, you know.
Yes, it's a very wonderful thing, and I think your awareness that having a system of belief, a system of positive belief, whether it's a spiritual belief system or whether it's some kind of personal belief system of optimism, just personal optimism, maybe spirituality, but some way that helps you to bridge that gap into hopefulness and
Yeah,
preserving a stable belief that things are going to be okay. And I just want to say how grateful I am to everyone for tuning in to this podcast. Please like and subscribe and do your part to believe in this future that we have the opportunity to make real going forward. It really is a wonderful time to be alive. It's a Woodstock moment in a sense. Here we are, this is happening. We didn't necessarily plan it all that much, but it is happening. And we are going to have
let's
the
make it
opportunity
happen.
to create this beautiful reality for our children and for ourselves. So thank you all for being here. Uh, and thank you, Dr. Mike, for all you've accomplished and for your great achievement in becoming Dr. Mike right now here today.
It's
And
my
thank you
pleasure.
all.
Thank you all. Bye bye.
This has been Snippets of Wisdom with hosts Mike Carell and Dr. Michael J. Murphy. Tune in and learn about the primary issues facing our society today and find the best chance of securing a stable and prosperous future. Snippets of Wisdom will enrich your life and the lives of all of your loved ones.